current state of the township, it's wet. No, a couple things to go through. Judy had mentioned the resort tax. The township has been working on this too, to try to get the ability to increase resort tax. I know in the past, resort tax always has kind of a bad connotation to it. It's actually a very good thing for all of us. The resort tax, the more people that come here and spend, it requires more policing, more service, and that pays for it, or helps pay for it. In the township, for example, all the resort tax that we collect goes towards policing. We just earmark that, and that is what it's for. So that is, hopefully that's going to come up soon, and then it does go up for a vote to see if we can raise it. Right now, we're just trying to get the ability to do it. Like Judy had mentioned, policing, housing is a huge thing. We are trying to attract people here to work. For the sheriff, before we had rented 2 Banyan Coves to give them a place to go. The school worked with us very nicely, helped us out with that. It was time to move on. We now have a much better spot for the sheriff's deputies to be at. It's quiet, they have parking, everything is working good. They're very pleased, we're pleased, and the best part, it saved us money. So that's always good. We're always trying to reduce the amount that we're spending. We also were able to, because we were under budget with the sheriff, we were able to purchase 2 new cruisers. I'm sure you've seen them. They're kind of hard to miss, the giant black Tahoes. Those are part of the reason why we bought those, because we buy them, they stay here. They're not going off island to be used elsewhere, they belong to us. And with them being new, there's less maintenance on them. The previous ones that we had, because we were just getting going with the sheriff, we had bought some used vehicles. Well, we've all had used vehicles before. They require a lot of work. So we're phasing out some of those in favor of the newer ones. So far it's worked. They are on the road more and less maintenance to them. Couple other things going on. If you go down Trenton Road, I'm sure you'll see at the end there's been a lot of work going on, not from the storm, but from down at Alfred Parker Park. We were able to get a grant for that park to completely redo it. So we are putting in trash receptacles, we are putting in new tables, it's getting all new dirt for grass, took out some trees, put in new trees. There's a new fence that went in just to try and make it nicer. That should be finished up very soon. Another thing coming up, finally, Langbrom Road is getting paved. It was due to be paved right before the monument project, and then the county saw all the work that was going to go on and didn't want all those trucks on their road. So this is scheduled, I believe it's right after the concert. They're going to come in. It is a $1.2 million paving project. The best part is $600,000 of that is coming from the county. $600,000 is coming from an Ohio Public Works grant. So, free road. Let's see, we've also been doing, like Judy had mentioned, the vacation rentals. That's a big thing going on. It's big for here, it's big for Middle Bass. Places are being bought up and being used as rentals. Well, there's taxes in that. A lot of people are not following that. The township invested in a software that goes out and scrubs the internet on all the rental sites. It even does something we had before where people would delist their house during the week, because that's when people in the office would look and try and find them. And then the weekend comes, they know the office is closed, they relist their house, get it booked, and Monday they delist it again. This software goes through and keeps a history of that. So it will track everything. It tracks when it was rented, how many times you had it rented, everything. Which then gives us the chance to collect resort tax on it. We've also hired in Bree Reynolds. He is coming in to help just to police that, to go through and start to find this. We sent out letters at first letting people know we are aware that you have not been paying. This is your chance to get paid up. So far we are getting some in. We are going to have to keep going with it. But it is good because like I said, it allows us to collect the taxes and it gives us better control on the rentals. We've also instituted in that anyone that is doing a rental home, you don't get a use permit to do it forever. It's a 1-year thing. So every year you have to reapply. So if you do have a problem area, you can come in and say, look, this rental right down my road is loud, everything. Zoning will then look at that, and that could be revoked. So it gives you guys more control too on where you live. We're trying to get this because the spread is just getting out of hand. So this is giving us a better focus to get it back to where it needs to be. I don't think there's anything else. Not a whole lot going on, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Are there any questions? Yes, Laura.
The sheriff's contract expires mid-December.
Mm-hmm.
Have the trustees made a decision as to whether or not you'll renew that contract, or are you considering the proposal from the village?
We always go into things with an open mind. So we are going to look at that. I'll be honest, we are very pleased with the sheriff. Everything's gone very well, but of course we will look at it and see once we get that. But has any decision been made yet? No, we haven't decided either way. But
will you be having any community meetings too?
I'm not sure yet on that. We'll have to check and see without even seeing the one proposal yet. It's still, I don't want to say it's a ways down the road because it's coming up quick, but yeah, we should have more info on that soon. Sally was first, then you, Brenda.
Is there going to be a levy for the police on the November ballot?
No, the police levy was a 5-year, I believe. So we've got 2 more, or we should have 3 more years on that one. Brent?
How many sheriff's deputies do you have?
Right now, I believe we are up to, don't quote me on this, but I think we're up to 5 for here and at least 1, if not 2 for Middle Bass.
Okay, so 7 plus 18 that the village has. So you've got basically 25 police versus, what did you say it was back 15 years ago?
At least 20 officers on duty. But now those officers aren't all on duty at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, back then you had 20 officers, now you've got 25, and you've got an overlap with the county and the village. So is the policing maybe better, or is it, I know that the sheriff stays in the township, but they have jurisdiction in the village as well because they're a county entity.
Right.
And I ask all these questions because I'm out on 357 adjacent to Kim Stoiber, and I'm contemplating annexing into the village. So,
Yeah.
you know, but, you know,
I would say that from 15 years ago, the climate has changed quite a bit. We are not comparing apples to apples. So, you know, you have to change with it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I know from past, well, like I said, not all those officers are, we have them on the roster, but they're not all gonna be here at the same time. You know, anymore, I'll be happy to have 10 to 12 on duty. And I'm sure out in the township, they don't have all 7 at the same time
Correct.
either. But, you correct me if I'm wrong, but, it's such a help. I mean, 2 years ago, we were here with maybe 4 sometimes. That's just not enough. And that's why I, you know, say people were upset because tickets weren't being written. There's no way that they had enough backup to write tickets in the environment that they were working in at times. It was just keep it tamped down. So hopefully now we can, you know, do some more ticket writing with these people that are being idiots on golf carts and, you know, drinking openly everywhere you look. And, you know, we've also talked about, we're going for a drone. Well, I didn't even tell you this.
I'm sorry,
You
Chris.
don't wanna get me going. Yeah, we have partnered with Tiffin University on a fellowship to work with law enforcement. And, so we're just starting that. I look at it as something good because if they, in their law enforcement studies and stuff, if we can use some of those people that come right out of, you know, of that program, or we work with them to do cadets and whatever with them, that's a great thing. But we are also going to look into possible drones for downtown, you know, where you actually can skirt the crowd and stuff. Because technology has become very much a part of the scene. There's also some face recognition cameras that we're gonna try and get a grant for. You know, just to help alleviate the lack of foot patrols and, you know, that sort of thing. But that too is coming down the pike.
And I've been coming up here since '86 with my parents, so I've kind of seen you grow into what we're at today. And, you know, back in the day, if I remember correctly, they were recruiting cadets out of the Ohio Troopers Station out of Fremont or something.
Everywhere, the Okata classes.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Because
understand.
at that time, when you come out of those APATA classes, you have 18 months to get a commission. And, you know, there were so many officers coming out that they didn't all get a job, a full-time job. So they wanted to get a job somewhere to have a commission so that they wouldn't have to go back in all through those classes again.
Right.
That just isn't happening anymore. Nope.
And just to speak real quick on the tech part of it, you're right. It's a huge thing. We had this past fall, we had where someone had done something and ran into the woods. Well, you run into the woods here, you're gone. And the sheriff brought out the drone with the heat seeking on it, put it up, and they knew exactly where they were. Pretty cool, really.
Okay, I wanna say it's really nice to have the presence of the township, at least the sheriff. But are you tracking how often are they being called to go downtown and assist? And is there some sort of overview that will show where the needs for more coverage in the village or I'm assuming that once they drive out of the village, it's gonna be the sheriff who's going after the golf carts that are driving crazily. But when you get a really downtown, problem where you're calling everybody, all men on deck, are you tracking how many times that happens or when it happens?
I know on the sheriff's end, they do keep a record of every assist that they do in the village. I don't know if, Judy, if you guys have.
We do. We do, but we are just looking at new software, cause our old software is so, time consuming manual. You can't just put in certain, things and it pops up. They have to do a lot of manual stuff, so we're looking at, upgrading that system, but, we do, we track. And I don't have those stats with me, but, yeah. Unless we really, and it's mostly, I would say, on, weekends, you know, the busy weekends. Other than that, I would say there's not a whole lot of assist calls. I mean, you know, maybe more so in the winter, or, I don't know, you know, I mean, but we do help out. I mean, they always do, both sides do mutual aid. When you're called,
Yeah.
you go, and, you help out, and that's just the way it is. We also do get an ODNR when the officer's on duty, which I think is only on weekends, maybe,
Yeah.
out in the township. He will come in and help, you know, help patrol and stuff. They won't write tickets though, they leave that up to our officers, which, you know, is understandable.
Hey Chris, Peter Houston back here, sorry. I was curious with the short-term rental or transient rentals, do you have a limited number of permits available, or is it unlimited at this point?
I believe right now there isn't a limit on it, but every one of them goes through a review. I can check though with our zoning inspector, Greg Auger, to find out for sure.
You know, with the, you know, the limited number of houses that come on the market for sale,
Yeah.
it might be a nice thing to be able to have a limit on the number of permits that are available, so that some of those houses could end up in hands of young families that
Yeah.
want to live here.
Which would be nice, that would be.
And the second question I have for you is electric everything, scooters, bikes. What are you seeing out there? Are we seeing an increased number of incidents? Are we regulating how they utilize the road?
I don't know on the number of incidents. I know that it is something that Port Clinton's going through this too. It is a very hard thing to regulate because there aren't any laws around them. They aren't licensed. They're fast, and you've got kids on them. And I say kids, many times there's two on them. I know it is a big issue right now. I can't really speak to anything that is being done, but I know it's something that is an issue that is beyond here that I believe is the entire state is really starting to look at, going, what do we do with these things? Because some of those things they'll go 25 plus easily, and no one's got helmets, anything.
Well, I would take a minute and have you check out what they're doing at Mackinac Island, which is that any vehicle that has a battery on it has to be able to be stored in a fire-safe area.
Oh,
And it's not
interesting.
being used.
Interesting.
That was the way that they were able to come up with a regulation that could, you know, control the number.
Yeah. Okay, good to know. Tom?
Yeah, Chris, I know I raised this before, but can there be anything done about the traffic on Meacham as far as the speeding is concerned? Now, I know I mentioned making Put-in Bay and Meacham a four-way stop,
Yes.
and I think you said there was some issue with that.
We
Is there
talked-
any way to review that and to see if that's possible?
We actually, we talked with the county engineer on that again to see. Because we made the stop up by Joe's a three-way stop now, which seems to have helped. We did put in the flashing signs on Put-in Bay Road to warn people and that it's cross traffic does not stop. The county was not necessarily in favor of making that a four-way stop unless nothing improved. One of the big issues with that intersection there is all the trees.
Right.
Because when you pull up and stop and you look down, all those trees along Meacham would have to go to make it clear to see, and they're really trying to avoid that. We'd hoped that that the stop signs, a warning of that would hope to prevent any golf carts going through. The speeding, as far as that goes, I will mention it to the sheriff and say it's still an issue down there. I know it's a main thoroughfare for cabs.
Well, not cabs, also cars, they come down from the top of it because of the hill there.
Yeah.
They just accelerate. What about an overhead, any type of overhead mechanism, like lights flashing or something?
I don't know if that's something that we could do. We could check and see. We use the county as our kind of as our guide for roads. So they were just out. Let's see, not this actually this past week I believe it was, and went around. They actually went around with Eric because I was out of town. But I will see what was said about that and get back with you on that. Yes. Would you like the mic?
So you're going to be doing Langham Road, which is great, I'm excited about that. Have the engineers designed to straighten that road?
Yes,
for
I'm glad you said
drainage?
that.
Because there's a lot of flooding.
There is.
And there's areas where if you're in a golf cart, probably a car too, I'm always in a golf cart, but it wants to pull you off the road, and if there's people walking along there, especially with strollers, I always worry that especially visitors, they're not used to that. I am, but they're gonna be pulled over and hit somebody walking.
Funny that you mentioned the golf cart. Years ago, when they were first planning to do this, we did a road tour with them in my cart. And when we came up there, I took my hands off the wheel and I said, "Watch." So part of the plan isn't to just repave the giant lake in front of the Twine Shanty, in front of Christie's old place.
Yeah.
All of that is going to be leveled out. They're going to put in drainage to get rid of all of that. And they're looking at every spot along there to shed water off the road. So that should be a huge win and get rid of all that stuff. Mm-hmm.
What about Airline Drive? Has there been any
Airline Drive is a private road.
private road?
So, much like Duff Road, the residents can go together and pool their money and get it paved like that. That's what Duff Road did. And there's several private roads on the island that have done that. But because it's private, we have no control on it.
I have a question for Miller. So,
Okay.
real quick,
Not Miller.
well, I know, but she's represented. And I'm sure they will, if Miller raises their prices again, could consideration be done to maybe for the property owners to keep the present level maybe, or gives them some kind of a discount? I know you can't on individual tickets, that'd probably be too cumbersome, but for bulk tickets that are bought, people could show their residency and then, just a little break.
Okay,
I'm just thinking.
I will pass that on.
Thank you so much.
And Billy. Okay.
Chris, thank you very much.